It's kind of an odd shift for a sequel to go from an outer space setting to a nautical one, but SteamWorld games have never shied away from being kinda odd. In fact, it's their whole thing. There are direct connections between the silly, swashbuckling story of SteamWorld Heist 2 and the original from 2015, but those take a while to show up. Instead, much of Heist 2 feels completely separate, as it gives you control of a submarine and a crew full of goofy robots in a colorfully cartoony ocean. This adventure takes place on a surprisingly large overworld map that's packed with so many tough and tactically deep turn-based missions and lighter side activities that burning through them all took me around 40 hours. The plot that ensues is appropriately light and fun, revolving around our borderline competent, one-armed captain Quincy Leeway. He's trying to escape the shadow of his famous mother and gathering a crew to discover the source of a rusty corruption that's poisoning the water. I wouldn't call any of the surprises shocking or its characters especially memorable, and I suspect they'd be easier to love if their dialogue were fully voiced, but its robotic heart is firmly in the right place. What is super memorable is the music. The relentlessly charming band Steam-Powered Giraffe returns with 15 delightfully catchy original songs that play when you're visiting taverns between missions. SteamWorld Heist 2's 2D turn-based tactical gameplay is very similar to the original, but the controls are notably smoother. Moving your team of 1 to 5 bots, depending on the mission, around to line up shots and snag loot within their 2 action turns is a tricky challenge of efficiency. And having to escape an endless stream of increasingly powerful enemies after you track down a target or item objective, rather than just trying to clear the entire map, gives a lot of missions a thrilling finale. The fact that all of the aiming is done manually by raising or lowering the angle of your bot's gun arms gives this a little more life to it than a lot of turn-based games. It's pretty hilarious to watch the path as you slide it around. That said, you'd have to be a geometric savant to predict what multiple bank shots you'll be able to line up without moving somewhere first and then seeing where the guideline ends up pointing. So a lot of those feel like random lucky rewards rather than something I earned. I do feel pretty proud of myself when I successfully land a ricochet shot to hit an enemy behind cover using a weapon that doesn't have that guideline though. Each character starts with a native class that you level up, but you're strongly encouraged to turn all of them into hybrid beasts that mix and match the abilities from the 6 different trees. It's a very smart and flexible system once you get going, though a lot of that unlocking process, which requires a bot to run missions with each class's signature weapon type, feels obligatory. You'd be foolish, for instance, not to unlock the first tier powers of the sniper and the boomer on just about everybody. And I have to say, an upgrade you can buy relatively early on that unlocks the first 2 full tiers of a class's skills after using it for just 1 mission made me seriously regret how I'd chosen to spend my experience points up until that point. Once things get rolling and you can combine the best skills from each tree with the 10 bots' unique special abilities, there are a lot of extremely powerful and satisfying tricks you can pull. Beacon can teleport anywhere you've seen, and pairing that with a good brawler's hammer means there's no one he can't smash for high damage. Chimney's tit-for-tat ability deals damage to anyone who hits her, and that goes very well with the Pain Amulet item that does the same thing because the effects stack. Hightower's Abs of Steel ability makes him invulnerable and forces every enemy to attack him on that turn, which is excellent for, among other things, buying some time for your crew to make a quick getaway. Notably, SteamWorld Heist 2 does away with some of the original's annoyances, such as the tightly limited inventory system and procedurally generated levels that felt kinda samey after a bit. These multi-chambered stages are all hand-built around their objectives, and you can keep as much of the loot on hand as you like, though there's no way to level up early game items, so a lot of it becomes obsolete junk that you have to sell off. There are a good amount of legendary weapons that come with unique modifiers, and I often found myself changing up my tactics to take advantage of a new one. Toward the end of the campaign, I'd cranked up the difficulty a couple notches to keep the enemies competitive with my heavy-hitting teams. Difficulty can be fine-tuned to your liking on the fly, with different sliders for the tactical and real-time modes, as well as a bunch of other options. Of course, each mission is thoughtfully designed with layers to it beyond simply accomplishing the main objective with your last bot limping out the door with a sliver of health, enemies nipping at their heels. Getting the maximum rating means you'll have to come back for another run, and go for getting all of your bots out alive. Then do that while also grabbing all of the loot bags, including the 1 bit of epic loot, and then do the bonus objective. Boss fights also put clever spins on the mechanics and challenge you to deal with multiple problems at once. Enemy variety is another strong point. The Rattlers are especially neat looking, in that their designs are differentiated from the more typical junkyard androids of the Navy by the fact that they've replaced their metal parts with rust-proof ones made from bones. It is unclear where these bones came from. With several sets of melee, ranged, and special enemies, there are a lot of variables to consider and threats to prioritize on every mission. If that sounds overwhelming, know that there are 0 consequences for failing a mission. You just try again. You can also reload a checkpoint from 2 turns back, so while you can save scum your way through a mission, it's not quite as easy as just undoing the one bad move you just made. Considering there's no real way to know and plan for what type of bot will be best suited for a mission before you dive in, it's for the best that failure is very much an option. Of course, there's basically a whole second, totally different open-world game built around the turn-based tactics, which you play as you travel from mission to mission. It's relatively simple, but the map itself is surprisingly large, and there are plenty of side challenges and stashed treasure chests. Tangling with enemy watercraft, running occasional obstacle courses, and unlocking routes and shortcuts with new abilities is quite a bit shallower than the main event, but it definitely has a few tense moments because you can't replenish your sub's health without docking and ending your day, and getting sunk means losing all your booty. Combat with boats and other subs is along the lines of bullet heaven games like Vampire Survivors, in that your sub fires automatically while you focus on steering out of the way of incoming cannonballs and torpedoes and lining up weapon arcs. There's certainly some skill to it, and it does get a little deeper once you unlock the ability to boost your engines and submerge. SteamWorld Heist 2 does a reliable job of rolling out upgrades like that to prevent both the combat and the satisfying act of uncovering the map's fog of war from becoming too one-note over the course of 36 hours. SteamWorld Heist 2's charming adventure refines the original game's clever turn-based combat with a flexible mix-and-match class system and handmade maps that are built around using teamwork to accomplish their objectives and escape unscathed. On top of that, it serves up a light and entertaining real-time nautical exploration game as a palate cleanser between battles, and swapping between them helps things stay fresh for more than twice the first game's 15-hour length. It's occasionally mired in grinding to unlock the next area, and the skill system will make you waste a lot of XP if you don't know what's coming. But there's no shortage of loot, amusingly off-kilter robot characters, and fantastic original folksy music along the way. For more, check out our reviews of Capes and Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. And for everything else, stick with IGN.